Okay, so this afternoon I'm going to be talking about a CD which when it first came out meant quite a lot to me. And I thought it was a great return to form from the band after having had some patchy records for the past maybe 4 years or something like that. And I'm talking about, nearly dropping it, I'm talking about Yield from Pearl Jam. Yield to what? Well, that is the question. But more on that later. Now, this is the 6th record by the band, and it features more of a collaborative approach to songwriting, whereas before that, a lot of the songs were written by Ed Vedder, and the music was played by the rest of the guys, obviously. Although Ed obviously does play some guitar as well. Now, the songs on here, as I say, are more collaborative, and it kind of shows. A lot of these songs have their own character. So in a way, you could say it's an experiment, but it's quite a good experiment. Now, like I say, I played this a hell of a lot when it first came out. And I really, really liked it. But the songs that I didn't like, that hasn't changed over time. I don't know why, but it hasn't. I still don't like them. But there's not many. So what have we actually got on here? Well, starts off with Brain of J, which I think is one of the best Pearl Jam songs, full stop, in their entire career. They've been going a long time now, since the early 90s. Brain of J, fantastic song. Who's got the brain of J? I mean, fantastic. Then you've got Faithful, which is absolutely superb. I love Eddie's voice on Faithful. People slag Eddie for his voice, but I think his vocals on this are terrific. Then you've got a song called No Way. Given to Fly, which is a great song. I saw them play that live, absolutely superb. Wish List, another great song. Pilot, fantastic. Do the Evolution. I mean, these are just cracker after cracker after cracker, superb songs. Then you've got this little instrumental piece which is just listed as a red dot. Then MFC, which is superb, got a superb riff on that. Then you've in sort of towards the end he sort of goes fuck it. It's just absolutely superb. Love it. So entertaining. Low Light brings it down a little bit. In Hiding is another fantastic song. It's kind of dark. And needs to be listened to carefully to hear what he's actually saying. It's kind of a dark lyric on that one. I really like it. I wish it'd do more of that kind of thing, actually. Then you've got Push Me, Pull Me, which is, a good fun song. Then it finishes on All Those Yesterdays, which, to be honest with you, sounds a bit like something that Lou Reed would have done on the Transformer record. Because I think you've got a tuba on there. You've got some brass on there, anyway. I can't get into that. Anyway, who's in the band? You've got Eddie Vedder, you've got Jeff Ament, you've got Stone Gossard, and you've got Jack Irons and Mike McCready. Now, this was the last record to feature Jack Irons, who would be replaced by the more than competent Matt Cameron. Now, that lineup, including Matt Cameron, has stayed consistent ever since. And I like that. I like that. It's like your football team. I want them to have the same 11 who become triumphant. And believe me, Pearl Jam have become triumphant. They've had many triumphant nights, many triumphant occasions. And thankfully, I've seen 2 of them. But I didn't see them on this tour. But that doesn't matter. I saw them later, when they were probably even better. So, as I say, the 6th record. Now, apparently, Eddie Vedder's approach to this during recording was a lot more laid back, and the rest of the band members felt that they could, for the first time, really get to know Eddie and work with him better rather than being a little bit frightened of him. Because Mike McCready said previously he was a little bit scared of him, As for Yield, the artwork. The guys liked the idea of what if there was nothing to yield to, as this clearly shows you. There's nothing to. It's an empty road. So that was the idea behind that. This concept, this idea, this notion of what if you've got something telling you to yield, which is basically American for stop. Not a word we really use in Britain much. But what if there's nothing to yield to? Kind of an interesting concept. So that's essentially a visual representation of that idea, that notion. How did this thing do in the charts? Well, it did very well. Sold roughly 1.5 million worldwide. Since the last certification, it's probably closer to 2, to be honest with you, if not more. Number 1 in Australia, number 2 in Canada, number 2 in Italy, number 2 in Japan, number 1 in New Zealand, number 1 in Norway, number 2 in Portugal. And the Australians absolutely love Pearl Jam and the Foo Fighters and that kind of rock. And number 7 in the UK, even though it got no airplay whatsoever. Nobody played anything off this on British radio. I can assure you, nobody. Probably not even on a rock show. BBC used to have a rock show, I think they still have. It's not even worth listening to, it's terrible. And the US Billboard number 2, so I didn't quite get to number 1. But, you know, who cares? Like I say, 1.5 million, roughly worldwide. So, have you heard Yield by Pearl Jam? Did you think it was... I mean, the critics liked it. It got good critical acclaim. The main point was that it showed a more mature approach to songwriting, and it was a little bit more of a direct sort of rock album as opposed to some of the previous ones. So it sort of harked back to the very early days of 10, etc. So, what do people think of Yield? Is it considered a classic album? I wouldn't say it's a classic, but it's bloody good. And I think it's held up over time. As I say, Eddie's voice is terrific on this. I think he's at the peak of his powers on this. Really superb. If you've not heard it for a while, then go listen to it. Go and have a listen to it. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised because it does hold up. I heard it the other night and it's still a terrific record. So, that is Pearl Jam with Yield from 1998.